Welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast, broadcasting from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful eyes of the Empire and on the fringes with the New Republic. Join your hosts Garrett K. Jones, Brian Karasik, and John Mark Tolley as they discuss the various facets of the saga's lore and characters, review the films, and discuss every tidbit of news coming out of Lucasfilm. Remember, this isn't just your Star Wars, this isn't just my Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. This is the way.
It is indeed our Star Wars. Welcome once again to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. I am John Mark Tolley, of course, joined by my co-host, as always, Garrett K. Jones. Mr. Jones, how are you?
I'm good. It's been quite a busy weekend with Halloween and everything.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know how you spent your Halloween.
I saw some of the pictures. Well, we spent it trick-or-treating with my niece and nephew and their little girl, and of course my daughter Lily was Tigger. That's Tigger. Tigger.
Nice.
Of course, you know what the most wonderful thing about Tiggers are.
Tiggers are wonderful things.
Tiggers are wonderful things.
Yeah.
They're bouncy. Their tops are made out of rubber. Their bottoms are made out of springs. No. My wife was Piglet, and I was Christopher Robin. Or
that's cool.
I think most people thought I was just some weirdo wearing shorts in the middle of fall in 40-degree weather.
That's funny.
Yeah, we had fun.
Yeah, I went as Gru.
I saw the pictures. Yes.
Great. I'll let me see if I can get it up here on the screen. Hold on. My son, I found out he was going to go as a minion, and so I just turned into the skid on that one.
Yeah.
And so let's see here. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I ended up spending the evening with my parents giving out candy because my son was with his mom, and so we were doing that. Let me see here. Video file, downloads. There we go. Gru. Boom. Come on.
Any minute now.
No, that's not the.
There. Oh, there yes. You go to steal the moon.
Yes, and so like I had family members asking me like, "Is that your son? Is that Logan?" And I'm like, "No, that's not my son. That is a minion that I had digitally added through the magic of AI."
Yes, I'm about to say if that was your son's minion costume, that is impressive.
Yeah. Right?
That is very impressive.
And the best part was, though, for this entire costume, like I spent $0. Like I had the jacket. The shirt I have it's a long sleeve hooded t-shirt. I just threw on some slacks and a belt and the shoes, and I had the scarf. So I just
nice. Yeah, we don't have any pictures up of ours, but no, we went out to a local pizza place and had pizza. Well, they had pizza. I'm still on a soft food diet for the next 6 weeks, so I had meatballs.
Sucks.
Yeah, I'm slowly able to find things. Like I found out I was able to eat Chef Boyardee ravioli, so
that's good.
I'm able to eat a lot of things, a lot of eggs, a lot of hamburger, stuff like that. So anyway. Today we are talking about.
Well, before we jump into that, I've got a couple of memes for you.
Okay.
And I posted these to Instagram for the War of the Stars account.
Okay.
So this one was posted by Jonathan on the Feast of Fandoms chat. It says, I'm sorry, this is the one I did. It's a. Okay. Let me back up because that one is I'm premature on this one. Hold on.
That's what she said.
Well played. Well played, sir. Okay, here we go.
Why I'm holding this, but
Nice. Why is it showing that one? I don't want. Oh, hold on. It is showing the one I want. Okay, so yes, this is the one from Jonathan. It says the Jedi were bad. The Jedi were good. The Jedi had noble aims, but were fallible, as all of us are. They sought to ensure protection and peace, but were led astray by Palpatine, ultimately helping him rise to power. Followed by rockin' and rollin', down to the beach I'm strolling. We just need to tell the sequel to stop it now. And then the one that I made, I did this one. Always pass on what you've learned. These are all Yoda quotes. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Do or do not, there is no try. And then my stick is better than bacon.
You know what's sad though? That's been out long enough that there's going to be people out there watching this and be like, "What are they talking about?"
Right? I don't care.
Like, it's been long enough that there could be people being like, "My stick is better than bacon." What?
It makes sense when you think about it.
Yes. Oh wow. So anyway, rebellions.
Yes, we're talking about. Hold on, let me get this up here. We're talking about rebellions. And we're not just talking about the rebellion. We're talking about the theme of rebellion spread throughout the entirety of the Star Wars franchise.
Yes. And I think we're also probably, at least where I'm thinking is we'll talk about it as far in a historical context of what were the bases for what Lucas used when he was forming his idea of the Rebel Alliance. I think here's a good thing to start from. What makes a successful rebellion? Like, what are the recipes for a rebellion? And is there a difference between a rebellion and an insurgency?
There's a really fine line between a rebellion and an insurgency. Let me see what the difference is. What is the Okay, so here we go. A rebellion is an organized, forceful opposition to an established authority, while an insurgency is a specific type of rebellion characterized by often asymmetrical guerrilla warfare tactics aimed at overthrowing the government. So really, there's no real difference. One person's insurgency is another person's rebellion.
Yeah. So like what Saul Guerrero was doing, that would be more akin to an insurgency.
Correct.
Like guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
So, let's start off first of all with, I think the first thing you need for a successful rebellion is you need something to rebel against. You need some sort of a boogeyman and some way to get the moral high ground, like something that is an enemy or something that you're going against that you can say, this is bad. This is not, we're going to give you something better.
Right. Well, and that's just it. Like the idea is that you're wanting to replace the status quo with something that can provide something better. There's this idea of hopefulness, and the line of dialogue that's coming to me is from the movie The Crow, talking about it's where Michael Wincott is playing Top Dollar. He's the main villain of the story, and he talks about how this night before Halloween, it's called Devil's Night, and how the idea has become the institution. And effectively, that is what's wanting to happen with Rebellion, is that they have this idea for how things can be better, and they fight for that idea, that ideal, however, by whatever means necessary. Some of it not always the best, and
right.
And their goal is to make the idea the institution.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, at the same time, though, there are instances, and we see that with Saw Gerrera, where he's not necessarily fighting to establish something else. All he cares about is, I don't care what comes after this. I just don't want the Empire.
Well, and it's not
there's
just
no
that.
real
I
like
think,
set.
I
there's
think,
no. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I was gonna say, just a character like Saw Gerrera, and we'll talk more about him next week. So spoiler alert. But the way that Saw operates is he's almost anarchic because like the rebellion, the goal is to reestablish some form of republic where there is no empirical structure, where the people do have more of a say than one, crotchety old Sith Lord.
Yeah.
The problem is Saw Gerrera goes in guns blazing because ultimately what it comes down to is he doesn't care who wins so long as the people that he hates the most lose.
Yes.
He doesn't care what it costs him so long as it costs them just as much, if not more. He doesn't care about establishing something better, because what's happened is he's just hurting.
Yeah.
And hurting people hurt people.
Yeah.
And so for him, it's just he wants to continue a war. I mean, it gets to the point where we see this in Andor, where Saw Gerrera is even becoming a problem for the rebellion.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, one thing I've noticed especially when you're looking at rebellions and uprisings throughout history, and I want to know if you can think of any instances in the Star Wars universe where this has happened, where the rebels will attack civilian targets. They'll attack areas to prove one point: your government can't protect you. You think you can be? I think this is something more like when you're starting to get into the Imperial Remnant that they would do, where they will attack. They'll attack towns. They'll attack areas just to prove one point: your government can't protect you.
Well, that was the whole point of the Clone Wars to begin with. So let's go back to the OG rebellion, because the original rebellion picks up in the prequel trilogy with the formation of the Separatists alliance. The Independent
Confederation of Independent Systems. Yeah,
and it begins building because the whole thing has been fomenting on both sides. And I mean, so you've got that one kicking off, and really what it comes down to is you have all these planetary systems that are like, look, we appreciate what you've been doing for us, but we're feeling unheard of. We would like to start our own thing. And that's essentially what they plan on doing.
Yeah.
And the Republic, unfortunately, makes the mistake of going in guns blazing instead of, because like it turns into a battleground where you've got the Separatists trying to assassinate political figures. Granted, they're being pushed to do so, because of just being played on both sides. But there's no innocence on this. Whatever the Republic's ideals are, whatever the Separatists' ideals are, they're both going in at this, with this idea of this is how we're going to target and hurt them.
Yeah.
Neither side has the better ideal, because obviously the Republic is corrupt, and the Separatists will practice some of the worst methods for getting getting their point across. Like it's like they were wanting the war.
Yeah. Well, I think can we start talking about different types of, how types of rebellion? Because I think the first thing you see, and especially when you get into like the deleted scene from episode 3, is the idea of what I like to call passive rebellion, where it's like what early on Mon Mothma and Bela Organa practice, where they're putting up some sort of resistance against what the empire is doing, but they're trying to do it through means of more legal means, more in the Senate, trying to block legislation, trying to do things like that, which eventually they find is impossible.
Well, and part of it is like there's obviously a political and economic inequality, which is what creates the issue for the Separatists in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You've got systems that are not being heard. Whatever pleas that they're making to the Senate are going either unheard or deliberately ignored. And then so why should they? What is the benefit for them sticking around? If it's protection, they clearly have the ability of building whatever they need. And it feels like the only reason why they're there is because the Republic has need of whatever resources they provide.
Right.
But then you start seeing other elements where you start seeing oppression and marginalization, where a group is discriminated against or persecuted, and whether this is the Jedi who have been discriminated against politically and even ideologically by the Sith. That's one part. But then you have all these other planetary systems that are on the mid and outer rim, like Saw Gerrera's home planet, where they've become a positioning point for the Separatists, and the Separatists come in and they, obviously they're using droids, but the droids are, for lack of a better term, they're robots. I mean, they do whatever they're programmed to. So if they're programmed to go in and stay and be in a position where they have to be there, whatever oppression, marginalization for the locals is kind of a secondary feature. But then, then you've got those threats to group identity as well. And really, really what ends up happening is like the Republic had a weak government leadership. Ideologies got triggered all across the board. And then you have these triggering events where all the grievances have built up over time, and one thing leads to another.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What else do we have? We talked a little bit about the separatist movement.
Well, and so here's something interesting. So I did a Google search just now, like what the inciting incident is of the Clone Wars, and the Battle of Geonosis is that event.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at how that battle even takes place.
Yeah.
So let's back up from the Battle of Geonosis. What happens before that?
Well, first of all, you have, if you go all the way back, you have the blockade of Naboo, and which of course is started because of trade tariffs.
Right. So trade disputes. So trade disputes are happening. The Trade Federation, which for whatever reason has their own military arm,
and their own apparently their own seat in the Senate.
Right.
Like
they're not
how
a
did
system.
that happen? Yeah,
They
how
are
did
a
that
guild.
happen? Yeah, they're a guild. How did that happen?
And that's a very good question. So right there we can see that we've got all some issues with the way that things are set up. So we've got the Trade Federation doing their blockade of Naboo. Queen Amidala goes to the Senate, asks for help. The Senate is going to spend time deciding on that. And in the meantime, she goes back to her home, sets up a rebellion, gets things going, and by sheer happenstance of having Anakin being a dopey kid, he manages to stop everything.
All right.
Which leads to very quick succession, the ending of the Battle of Theed. But then from there, 10 years later, the next inciting incident is that Amidala is marked for assassination. And it goes sideways. She survives. Her handmaiden body double doesn't. There is another attempt on her life while under protection of the Jedi. That goes sideways, results in Jango Fett being spotted and identified after he killed his proxy. And because he leaves evidence behind, even if it's rare, it leaves a clue. That clue leads Obi-Wan Kenobi to Kamino, and it's during his investigation on Kamino that Jango starts, trying to kill him. When and they eventually follow each other to Geonosis, which leads to Obi-Wan getting captured.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads to Anakin sending a message to the Jedi Temple, going to Geonosis to stop the whole thing, getting him and Amidala captured. And then all the Jedi show up along with Yoda and the clones.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just one domino after another that falls into place. And if one of those, had Jango Fett been actually good at his job and had been the most direct he possibly could, he would have killed Amidala and would have left zero. Yeah. If he killed her the first time, if he had actually found out which platform she was going to land on and detonated the whole thing, killing everybody.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Everything else nothing else happens. Unless, of course, he was told, try to kill her, but don't succeed. Which that doesn't seem very possible.
Right. Or on the flip side, if when Count Dooku told Obi-Wan that the Republic was being led by a Sith Lord, if he had actually listened and said, wait a minute, who is this? Where they could have discovered Palpatine and maybe ended this early. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways.
Every time the Jedi are given a piece of information, it's incredible. It's for the most part, it's very accurate. And they don't want to believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We faced a Sith Lord on Tatooine. Oh, that can't be possible. The Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years. There's a Sith Lord leading the Senate. What? No. Whoa. We've got this old guy from Naboo who just happened to be from the planet that Queen Amidala is from, and her planet was having the issues. But it couldn't be him.
It can't be. Yeah. No. He's just a nice old man.
And so many things, so many ridiculous things where the Jedi just decided to ignore it.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, then we go into the Clone Wars, which is, like you said, you could almost consider this one big conflict from the Clone Wars all the way through to the end of the Galactic Civil War. As I mean, the Civil War is almost a continuation of the Clone Wars.
Well, and the Clone Wars were a proxy war anyway for the Sith versus the Jedi.
Yeah.
If you go back far enough, that's the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why did the Sith and the Jedi have a beef to begin with? It came down to ideology. It came down to religion.
Yeah.
The Jedi did not like the way that the Sith lords were handling things, and they took matters into their own hands. Instead of actually creating a real balance where you had 2 Jedi and 2 Sith and leave it at that, you have the Jedi building up this entire religious order. And Brian has said this multiple times. It was a complete lack of balance.
Right. Oh yeah. 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 So I think Clone Wars happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of battles.
Yep.
Eventually it ends with the formation of the Empire. And almost immediately you start seeing sort of the seeds of rebellion being planted with there's the as I said before, the deleted scene in episode 3 with Mon Mothma and Bail Organa and Padme deciding that they're going to form a block inside the Senate to kind of stand up against what Palpatine is trying to do. As I said before, almost a passive rebellion.
Yeah.
Where they're not necessarily out there, fighting, but they're trying to do what they can within the halls of power.
Right. Well, and then what that does is it goes from being passive to active, because you have people like Luthen Rail, you have people like Andor, and the other rebels that are building up their arms. You have them working behind the scenes, trying to do small little things to create difficulty for the Empire. But ultimately, as we saw in Andor season 2, the Gorman massacre was the inciting incident that really put the rebellion into active play. This is where you start having those rebel factions really joining together, because before that they were not. It was not a formalized
there was
rebellion. You had different factions.
Well, even Saul says it in his, and he does that little speech where he said, you have separatists, you have New Republicans, you have all of these different groups that are fighting for different causes. You probably even had some people that were like, maybe thought, well, the Empire has some good ideas, it just needs better leadership. Or even there was this idea that, you saw it with the Gormans, where this idea that, well, if only Palpatine knew what was really going on, that he obviously has to have no idea what's going on because it's so horrible. These things are being done in his name, and if he just knew what was going on, he would be able to stop it. And I mean, obviously, he was behind.
He knew. He knew everything.
He knew.
I mean, I'm sorry. Anybody who decidedly wears an all black cloak and talks in this evil voice and decides to crown themselves emperor.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
Come on, people. That's like Napoleon Bonaparte crowning himself king, when nobody in their right mind would be like, he's had some military successes. Let's have that guy lead us without anybody stopping him. Bad idea.
But yeah, I mean, the first mention I hear of any type of like real rebellion, of course, is the Ryloth uprising. With the Twi'leks on Ryloth.
Yeah, and that was during the.
But yeah, I mean,
wasn't it?
Into the Clone Wars. Well, you had the first battle of Ryloth, but then you have once the empire sets up, you kind of have another uprising where the Twi'leks and Ryloth began to kind of want to go their own way, and of course the empire can't have that.
Yeah. No, because I mean, if there's anything that empires are really good for doing, it's not allowing for any kind of individuality.
Oh yeah, I would have kind of flipped things on its head for a while and kind of skip ahead quite a bit and look at the Imperial Remnant as a resistance and a rebellion against the New Republic. Because that's initially what it ended up being, was you had these groups of Imperial generals who were wanting to overthrow
the New Republic.
And in a sense, they become the rebels. And they use a lot of the same, especially if you look at the legends, they begin to use a lot of similar tactics to what the rebellion did.
Yeah.
Of guerrilla warfare, of hit and run tactics, these kind of.
Yeah, because I'm looking, like, it's interesting because I'm looking here and because obviously in the sequel trilogy we've got the New Republic. They've established a new capital on Hosnian Prime.
Yeah.
And I'm reading here, it says the First Order rose to power by secretly rebuilding from the ashes of the Galactic Empire in the unknown regions, exploiting the New Republic's disarmament and political divisions. So the first thing is that the New Republic decidedly disarmed every single bit of their military arm, which was stupid.
Well, about the same time, though, that goes in, because if you listen to the prequel trilogies and read, especially the prequel books, they talk about how there was no standard that was what was so controversial about the building of the Grand Army of the Republic, was the fact that this hadn't been done for thousands of years, where there was a standing army within the Republic.
Each system were allowed to build up whatever they needed.
Yeah, each system was responsible for their own defense, and anything external would be handled by the Jedi.
Right.
So you still have that mindset with people of the New Republic coming into power, the New Republic, of remembering what it was like under the Old Republic or the Republic, and thinking to yourself, well, if building a military caused this, then we don't want a military.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the whole idea. And it's, I mean, if you're talking history, that was kind of the idea of appeasement during the Second World War, is they didn't want, these people didn't want to repeat the horrors of the First World War. It was kind of the same thing. These people in the New Republic didn't want to repeat the horrors of the Clone Wars.
But then you had, what's funny is historically you've got this, it's kind of crazy too, like, because the thing about history is that it is a tapestry. And if you pull on one little thread of why did this thing happen, there's a whole chain of events. There's a whole sequence that plays out from how that happened. Like Hitler coming to power stemmed from the lack of true leadership within Germany post World War One. Yeah. And he was able to build up a political party within Germany that the people rallied behind, because it was speaking to a lot of the issues that they were dealing with that were leftover grievances from the way that they were handled in World War One. Because Germany didn't start World War One. They were not behind it, but they allied with themselves, with the two factions. They took their alliances seriously because they were under treaty to do so.
Yeah.
And you look at, I mean, like, I can't say they were good intentions, because we know that line about good intentions and the road to hell and all that.
Yeah.
But there's certain trigger points within the chain of historical events that led to this. And unfortunately, Germany definitely falls into the realm of like imperial remnant, where they were rebuilding their and stockpiling their armaments, while everybody else is like, nah, we'll just hang out and chill and just try to recover from a Great Depression.
Definitely.
And nobody else could really afford to do so. Germany financially, as bankrupt as they were after 1918, they bounced back fairly quickly comparatively, and they didn't suffer nearly as badly during the Depression, but it still affected them to a point where.
Oh, I'd have to disagree with that, because there are stories of, especially in the 1920s during the Weimar Republic, where you would have stories of people bringing wheelbarrows of money just to buy one loaf of bread, and by the end of the day, the money would be worthless because of inflation was so high. I mean, that's how bad it got in Germany. Was like, you're talking like giant wheelbarrows that they're having to bring in, like, billions and billions of Deutschmarks just for a single loaf of bread. And you have to buy it at between a certain time, because at the end of the day, the money's going to be absolutely worthless.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess
things were
I'm
bad
not as familiar with all the ins and outs between World War I and World War II.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
I would have to go back and read up on that.
Yeah, right.
But again, there are
similarity. Yeah,
there's a lot of similarities, because I'm looking here at like which historical rebellions inspired George Lucas.
Well, I know he's talked about before about the Viet Cong.
Yes, it's specifically the Viet Cong, and how they responded to whoever was in charge there at the time. But there's also elements of the empire being influenced by the British Empire, the Roman Empire, as well as early 20th century Germany.
Well, I also see with the rebellions, I see implements of the French Resistance. The idea of cells, and each cell being kind of independent of itself, which is some one thing that the French Resistance did was, you only knew maybe one other person in your resistance cell, maybe two, because the idea was that if you were captured, you couldn't give everything else away, because you only knew what you needed to know.
Yeah.
You were given, like, go here, do this. That's it. That's all you need to know. Go and cut the wires at this phone company or this phone line to disrupt the thing. You don't need to know why. You don't need to know anything else about what's going on. You just go there and cut these wires, plant this bomb here, try to shoot this person, try to blow up this railway. That's all you need to know.
Right.
Which is something that you see, especially when you watch the show Rebels. They kind of have the same thing of, the Ghost crew is given a single task. They go, they do it, and that's it. There's no need to know anything else, because again, it's the less you know, the less you can give away.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the idea of rebellion, and what's interesting is in our world today, we're seeing elements of this playing out. And but it feels less like a rebellion and more like people just not liking things and not really understanding why, but they're told to dislike things politically. And it's just
Well, I think one thing that, going back to the rebellion in Star Wars, and you see this in history too, is these sort of rebel cells can only go so far. Eventually, you're going to need, like, take the American Revolution, for example. It starts out with a bunch of, farmers, and these kind of ragtag groups, but eventually you need to have an organized military. You need to have something that can stand toe to toe with the faction or the empire or whatever it is, the government that you're fighting, on equal terms, or at least close to equal terms as you can get.
Right.
Where you can actually see, like, hey, we have something to offer other than from what this other group has.
Right.
If it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'm kind of curious to see how, for me, I would have liked to have seen what would have happened in Star Wars had the rebellion been a little bit more successful than just like, okay, we've overthrown the Empire, we've established a new government, and now we're disarming. Like that, it doesn't feel like a very realistic understanding of how.
That's one reason why I like that's one thing I like that Legends did with the formation of the Republic, was they kept it military, which is why Legends, though the Republic, I think, was able to last a lot longer, was they had a military that they kept. They were able, they built up a strong military with a strong central government.
Yeah.
Which is something that they didn't do within the new canon. They had a very decentralized government and a very weak military.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like they just played it off of well, we're going to lead our government with ideals, and well, that's great, but how are you going to defend those ideas?
Yeah.
Because,
well, and I think at the same time, though, you can kind of see where they might be scared of a strong central government, because they just came from a government that had a super strong central government with the Empire.
That's true.
Where everything was centralized under one person, and you probably had fear of, well, if we go back to a strong central government, then that leaves, what if someone else decides to take power like Palpatine did?
Right.
So,
and I completely get that. Just because, but at the same time, it's like you've just had a galactic civil war. The people know just how bad the Empire had been. But at the same time, you had like other planetary systems who were not part of the conflict, or at least not directly, but were impacted by it, and they weren't fans of the rebellion or the Empire. And so, regardless of what uniform you're wearing, you're going to be considered persona non grata.
Yeah.
So,
what else do we have?
I think that's about it, man.
I think we covered quite a bit of ground when it comes to rebellion. Next week, as Garrett mentioned, we are going to be talking about one of the more infamous members of the early rebellion, that being Saw Gerrera.
Yes, who went from being a guerrilla fighter in the Clone Wars to being a guerrilla fighter and faction leader in the rebellion.
Yes.
Before his quite untimely demise on Jeddah.
Yes. So look forward to that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. And for those of you who are noting the theme of this week's episode and the date of its release, and now, granted, we recorded this on Monday, but today is November the 5th, which is known colloquially as Guy Fawkes Day, who instigated the gunpowder treason, which was a rebellion in and of itself. And it's fascinating history. Won't go into it, but if you're familiar with the rhyme
Remember the 5th of November.
the gunpowder, treason, and plot. If you're
Plot.
familiar with that
I see no
rhyme,
reason why someone should forget gunpowder, treason, or plot.
yeah, it's featured in V for Vendetta, fun movie, but
Yes.
we want to encourage you, just like we do when we're talking about, with regards to our veterans when we've had them on the show. We want to highlight the fact that it's important to know your history and to
Yes.
to understand it so that those kinds of terrible things do not repeat themselves. So
Exactly.
with that, I think that's where we're going to give it an end.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah. For those of you who are asking, I don't know how many people are asking. Hopefully, a lot of you. I have heard from Brian Karasik, our other co-host. He should be joining us back at the beginning of December-ish. He's just had a lot going on. So fingers crossed our resident Sith Lord will be rejoining us here in our alliance. So
well, with that being said, Brian, why don't you tell the people out there where they can find you?
Did you just call me Brian?
I did. Wow.
Because we're so used to having Brian go first.
It's Garrett. Garrett. He's right there.
My name's right there.
I'm poking you. I'm poking you.
Go drunk, Mark. I think you're home. Okay. Actually, Friday night, my best friend called me up from San Bernardino. It has been so long since I've heard him this intoxicated. Like, he had nobody at home. It was just him by himself with his dogs. And it was really kind of fun because he was like super honest. He was really, really this joke. Like, he doesn't really share his feelings a whole lot. So this kind of opened up some doors and it was really cool.
Cool.
But then he started repeating himself. I'm like, dude, you need to go get some rest. I need to check on him to make sure the hangover wasn't terrible. So, all right. As far as finding me, you guys can connect with me on Instagram and X at GKJ_publishing, where I talk about my books, The Archives of a Sync Ran, and my newest title, which will be a year old in this coming February, Midnight Playground, which is a collection of short stories. I also talk about my show on YouTube, The Right Way, where I talk book recs, author interviews, and creative writing tips. I have a new episode on Feast of Fandoms for Snackame coming up later this month. We are actually going to be celebrating our 1-year anniversary, which is pretty cool. And awesome. Then I have a new segment on my YouTube channel called Finding Fiction. The newest episode dropped publicly on YouTube on Halloween, talking about the Mission Impossible franchise. And we do a breakdown of the films, the themes, the villains, and the interconnected plot threads. So check those out.
Nice. All right. As for us right here at War of the Stars, if you want to get a hold of us, the best way to do that is through our email. That is warofthestars1@gmail.com. On all other social medias, you can find us at War of the Stars 77. If you want to support the show, you can do so by a couple of ways. First of all, Ko-fi.com/War of the Stars. That is ko-fi.com. If you're wondering, it's right there if you look at it. Spreadshirt.com/shop/War of the Stars. As always, all links will be in the description. Stuff for all that fun stuff. We are, of course, a proud member of Feast of Fandoms, as Garrett mentioned. Tons of shows on Feast of Fandoms. You can see them going right along the crawl right there if you're watching on the YouTube channel. Pretty much anything of any fandom there is out there, you can find a show on Feast of Fandoms. It is a feast indeed of fandoms. See what I did there? That will do it for this week. Join us next week as we talk Saw Gerrera. As always, remember, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. May the Force be with you.